He had a dream that stretched beyond imagination and far surpassed any comprehension in the 1960s, that would continue to change the world and a way in which we coexist for years to come. He was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A year before my birth, in 1964, the world celebrated the passing of the Civil Rights Act. I wouldn't have known it then, but that would eventually play an incredibly meaningful role in my life, personally. Rights that should have been so basic and undeniable were in fact refused to those born of black skin. Denying them education and the right to vote or own property were only a few rights they were denied. They couldn't go to restaurants that whites ate in, use the same public restrooms, or attend schools with other white children. It was a horrific injustice inflicted on African Americans, and one that Dr. King would take on at any and all costs. If I had been born in the 1800s and not in 1965, I would most likely not be writing this story. Instead, I would have been guilty of what was known as miscegenation, or race mixing, which was not only socially reprehensible, but a crime. In 1994, I married an African American man and began to learn firsthand just how much the Civil Rights Movement and Dr. King had impacted the way blacks were treated as a whole, and how its history now allowed me to love, marry, and have children with a man of color. Even with so many changes and victories and the Civil Rights Movement, we still had challenges and painful obstacles. For the first time in my life, I was called a nigger lover. I was truly devastated and confused. I couldn't comprehend why so many people still reacted with so much hate, or why my loving a black man still spurred such volatile emotions in others. I could clearly see that although legal, marrying a man I loved, a black man, continued even in the early 90s to propel hate in some. I eventually went on to have two beautiful daughters who are now 11 and 12 and a half. They are brilliant and amazing, and they are tan, curly-haired versions of mine and their dad's DNA, with my eyes and his nose. I think back to the 17 and 1800s when interracial marriages were illegal and punishable by death even. Women were beaten to death and killed right along with the black men that they dared to love openly. And I feel sadness and relief. Relief because I now, thanks to the Civil Rights Movement and Dr. King and so many others' sacrifice and perseverance, can walk down a public street with my husband hand in hand without fear of being killed. Relieved that my beautiful girls, who are highly gifted, high honor roll students, can now attend any school they choose. I am relieved that my daughters won't be banished because their father is a black man or refuse their right to vote. I am relieved that at least enough has changed for interracial couples that we are free to openly love one another, attend restaurants together, and live in a much more racially diverse and fair society than those of our ancestors. I am sad, however, because explaining to my daughters that all this in our history, the lack of rights, the slavery, and the abuse inflicted on our African American ancestors was indeed solely based on the color of their skin. I am sad that part of my daughter's heritage received such horrific treatments, and the other half of their heritage inflicted it. I am sad that, although we have come so very far, my daughters continue to deal with shallow-minded, hate-filled people who still believe they are less than because they share DNA with their African American father. And I am saddened that this is even still an issue, that it isn't innately part of every single human being to accept and love others based solely on what kind of people they are, not the color of their skin. In spite of some residual negative left in its wake, the Civil Rights Movement forever changed the path of my life before I was even born, and that of my daughters today. Thank you to Dr. King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Paul Robeson, Mary Church Terrell, Rosa Parks, Ruby Bridges, and so many more, for all your devotion, dedication, and sacrifice. Some who suffered endlessly, and some who gave their lives to make it possible for me, a white woman in the 21st century, to love, marry, and have two of the most amazing children with a black man, without punishment or persecution, and without fear or hesitation. Without you all and the Civil Rights Movement, a large and incredible part of my history would probably not exist.